Here at the INCA conference in Birmingham, I'm joined by Dave Clarkson of Ofcom, who has just given a keynote presentation and taken part in a panel discussion that was, shall we say, quite lively. Dave, thanks for talking to us today. I think the impression we all had was the AllNets are somewhat suspicious of Ofcom, and perhaps it's, in their eyes, perceived loyalty to the open reach and the larger operators. What's your reaction to that?
So look, to some extent, it's not surprising. We understand where the AllNets come from. I mean, their challenges, they're entering a market and they're going up against incumbents which have got established positions. So it's a much harder position for them. And these are big investments that are going to take a long time. So it's perfectly understandable that they would question what's going on. But in terms of how we go about regulating the market, our position is absolutely not to favour BT. In fact, we ultimately regulate BT to actually put limits and restrictions on it, which are ultimately designed to help the AllNets and actually improve their ability to enter the market and actually establish themselves. And that's exactly the framework that we put in place earlier this year.
And I think they were also a bit worried about Equinox. What can you tell us about your view on that?
Yeah, well, Equinox is the latest sort of FTTP pricing regime coming out of OpenReach that, again, under our rules, BT has to notify us and the industry and give 90 days to us to look at it to see whether or not we do think there is a problem. And we were looking very much to see whether or not we thought that Equinox had anti-competitive effects. We totally get that Equinox is a more aggressive pricing than previously, and that definitely will make it harder, for the competitors in the market. But we came to the conclusion that it wasn't anti-competitive. Effectively, OpenReach had very high prices, and they were really bringing them more into line with what competitive prices should be. And when we did this, not only did we check the structure of these prices, we did check what the current prices being offered by AllNets was as well, and we were satisfied that they weren't anti-competitive. So, does it stiffen up competition and make it harder? Yes, but we didn't believe they was anti-competitive.
So what's your message for the AllNets going forward? In fact, share with us your vision, which again you mentioned in your keynote.
So, going forwards, we very much want the AllNets to build sustainable networks and actually have long-term futures in the market, because we want to create more competition in this market on a long-term basis. And it's great to see how many business models and plans that there are out there. And it seems quite likely that we will get more areas with more competing networks. The thing I mentioned in my presentation is, with so many AllNets building in different areas, which is the logical thing to do, we are going to have a lot of small operators. And sometimes that can be problematic, particularly in becoming sort of sustainable and being able to wholesale, particularly to national ISPs, which currently control a lot of the customers in the market. And so I think that it would be really good if the AllNets could try and build, and I know it's difficult, but to try and build their networks in some common way, which will mean that offering homogeneous products across the different networks is much easier. And possibly, if we get into a merger and acquisition stage, which I think we probably will at some point in the future, that will actually assist those acquisitions and make the integration of the networks that much easier, which will just increase their value and make it much more likely that they will be sustainable in the long term.
Well, it's certainly going to be a very interesting future, however it develops. But in the meantime, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.